Sometimes we have organisms interacting in their niches, and we call them a keystone species. And that is when changes of the population of one species can dramatically cause changes in the entire structure of the biological community. I have a picture here of a sea otter, and right behind it you can see a kelp forest. These are huge photosynthetic forests, and they're really kind of amazing because they'll float, but they're anchored to the bottom. And what we saw happen with the sea otter was that they got hunted. And so humans were killing the sea otters, and thus the sea otters could not kill their prey, the sea urchin. And that sea urchin would feed on the kelp. When the sea otter population was very low, if we think back to our predator-prey population, predator is low, so prey must be high. Low numbers of sea otters, high number of sea urchins. The sea urchins devastated the kelp forest. When they did so, the entire biological community collapsed. And it was all because we took out this one keystone species, the sea otter. When the sea otter was reintroduced, we saw the sea urchin populations drop, and we saw the kelp start to return. Keystone species are very important because if we as humans affect keystone species, then we're going to dramatically affect the entire biological community. Another interaction is symbiosis. Any relationship in which two species live closely together is called symbiosis. This means, the word itself means living together. There are three main classes: mutualism, parasitism, and commensalism. Mutualism is exactly what it sounds like. Both species benefit. I picked this example because it's fairly familiar to students at your age. You've seen the movie Finding Nemo. These are, of course, clownfish, and they live in a sea anemone. And it's important because the anemone will sting things, but that doesn't mean that it can never be consumed. But some things do feed on the anemone, and that's a problem because these clownfish use the anemone for an actual home, as a place to stay safe. But when something endangers it, they're going to swim out and run it off. So the clownfish benefits because they get a home, they get shelter. The anemone benefits because it gets protection from those organisms that can actually eat it. Mutualism, both species benefit. Parasitism is a little bit different. One organism benefits and the other is definitely harmed. This particular fish does not have tails on its side. That's an organism called a sea lamprey. These particular organisms belong in the ocean, but were introduced to the Great Lakes. And they are a parasite. They typically form on larger organisms in the oceans where you have much bigger fish. And they'll latch on and they'll feed from that fish until they're either sloughed off or they've got enough that they can reproduce. You'll notice here that we have a wound from a previous sea lamprey. So this fish has survived one before. Currently it has two on it. They literally chew and suck the blood out of this fish. In no way, shape, or form has the fish helped. It's harder to swim with these attached to it. It's constantly losing nutrients because they're constantly sucking at the blood of this organism. And so one organism benefits. That's the sea lamprey. The other is harmed. That's the fish here. That's parasitism. In this example, we have commensalism, in which one organism benefits and the other one is unaffected. We have a shark. The shark swims about its daily life, catches food, eats the food, and there tend to be little scraps. These remora fish will actually stay with the shark, and they're going to eat those little scraps. The shark doesn't lose anything. The scraps don't help it. But it doesn't gain anything either. These fish don't provide any function. They just simply swim around with the shark and eat those scraps. In this case, the shark, completely unaffected. The remora fish are benefiting because they get food. There has been some new research that suggests that perhaps the remora fish are helping to keep parasites off the shark. If that were true, the shark would benefit by keeping rid of the parasites. Since the remora fish benefit and the shark benefited, that would be an example of mutualism. So far, it's just some preliminary research. Potentially, by the time you're out of college, there might be more data to support that hypothesis. Currently, however, we use this as an example of commensalism. It's important to think about organisms and their interactions with other living things because no species lives isolated from the world around it. All species interact. And so these species interactions are very important to biology and definitely important to ecology.